Greetings, everybody. Mike Wilkerson here, along with David Curriet, host of the Fangbanger podcast. We're here again for the True Blood Transfusion, the Two Guys Talking Fangbanger podcast video-only segment talking about news, feedback from our podcast that reviews True Blood each and every episode every week, and your input, the listener feedback that's built our Two Guys Talking podcast network. Again, welcome.
Hi.
A quick sneak peek about the podcast over at fangbangerpodcast.com.
Yeah. What?
Give them a sneak peek of what we just talked about over at the Fangbanger podcast.
We just discussed episode 2, You Smell Like Dinner.
Mm-hmm.
We gave it our rating, and we introduced a new segment that we're going to continue through called the Merlot Special, where we pick a character that we thought really exemplified, was a standout in that episode.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be doing that in all of our episodes.
Which would be really cool. And remember, we want to hear from you who you thought the best character inside of the last episode, in fact, every episode, when you hear the tones calling for input, we want to hear from you. And again, that's at fangbangerpodcast.com. Click on the contact button, fill out the quick web form, and tell us what you think. First thing we're going to do is go straight to feedback, because something that we talked about inside the Fangbanger podcast was the previously on True Blood that you noted also inside of episode 2.
Yep.
And so the trend, the sad trend that has proliferated Hollywood lately, and I think for years now, the previews, I'm not a big fan at all. I think it's a waste of time for those of us that have been watching the program. Even if it was last season and you needed to be caught up, well, you're going to catch up before the season starts. And so you don't need to waste 2.5, 4 minutes on something that catches you up. In the same gasp, I don't need you to tell me what happened less than a week ago.
Right.
I've got it. I'm a rabid fan of the program, and why on earth you sense the need to go back and revisit?
Lowest common denominator television.
And I'm totally not a fan. Everybody says that we are not a stupid audience. The only way you're going to make sure Hollywood understands that is by telling them inside your blog posts, your Twitter posts, your Facebook posts,
your podcasts,
everything, that it's not acceptable. And we're going to be doing that. We're going to start a giant movement where we don't want to know what happened previously because we got it.
Yeah,
we got it. We were there. We're an intelligent audience, and you don't need to pander to us like that. Anyway, we're going to get straight to feedback. The first one is from Paris, who actually sent me 2 messages in the span of about a half an hour. She just initially started watching the program, or listening to the program, and I'm assuming watching as well. And she writes, the question was posed whether the show will do previously on recaps on each episode. If you've ever actually watched the episodes on TV, you would realize that they only do the recap on the premiere episode of each season. So I highly doubt that they're going to change that. That being said, it's going to be difficult listening to a podcast where both podcasters aren't really clued into the show they're supposed to be reviewing. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt before I abandon ship. Paris. And Paris, first thing I want to totally congratulate you on is contacting us consequentially. So you started listening to our podcast. Obviously, in the course of listening to our podcast, you sent another feedback message asking questions and providing input and feedback, which is what you're supposed to do with the podcast as an audience member. I totally applaud you with that.
Absolutely.
The second thing I applaud you on is that immediately, I think it was 5 or 6 minutes into the episode, you actually dropped us another email saying how wrong that you were. You've no idea how much I revere you as a listener and watcher of both this segment and our Fangbanger podcast. To have an audience member actually tell me that they were wrong, I've been podcasting professionally for now 7 years. I've never gotten that.
Yeah.
Ever.
That's the kind of feedback that we really enjoy. It makes it, as opposed to just the two of us talking, it makes it sort of a community effort. And to hear somebody come back and say, I think you guys are a little off, or you need to pay more attention. I'm going to give you a chance, but I'm not really buying what you're selling. And then to immediately turn around and say, you know what? I apologize. You guys aren't exactly the idiots I thought you were.
Right.
Magnificent. Thank you very much.
It's a wonderful payoff as a professional podcaster, and I appreciate you as a listener, and I can't wait to hear more from you. What would I also like you to do is to tell your friends about our podcast. There are plenty of True Blood podcasts. I do think, though, that we are going to be a completely different flavor in the pool, in particular that we want your feedback. And then we'll talk about your feedback when we get it on the show. Again, a great letter, Paris, and I will spare you the crow sandwich. But all of the other, we had 11 people that mentioned that had very much the same thing, and we haven't heard back from any of them. So again, kudos to you. I give you a nice big chocolate pie or something. The other folks, big juicy crow sandwich.
And I believe your crow sandwich will go well with a glass of red wine.
Our True Blood.
And you know, and I gotta take some of that on myself, because I sat here during the first podcast and said, you know, Mike, they're not going to do that. I really don't think they're going to do that. I don't see them go in that direction, and I was apparently dreadfully wrong.
And again, I hate being right on that. There's no me being right and woohoo, I get to throw it on you guys. And that's not the case at all. We all lose with previously ons. Doesn't matter what program it is. Everybody loses. So again, keep the feedback coming in, and that's outstanding stuff. Oh, the other thing I wanted to address too is, remember, while I'm not nearly as educated and in the know as all of you who have watched every single episode, I'm catching up quick.
Yeah.
I'm already on episode 21, so that's 3 episodes away from the finish of season 2. So I'll only have one more season and only 12 episodes to watch, and I'm already watching this season's episode. So I think I've got a really good flavor. And again, it's another reason to listen to our podcast rather than the others. I'm providing you a completely different perspective than you would otherwise.
This is true.
I don't think I love the show yet. And I don't know another podcast that has somebody that has kind of the differing perspective of, I'm not in love with the show, and I'm not in love with the show yet. So, again, a great letter, Paris, that showcases so many perfect things. On to the next letter. The next letter is from Leah in Toronto via Facebook. Leah writes, let me get this straight. Mike has never seen the entire run of the program, but will be reviewing this most recent season. How's that going to work? I'm fine with being welcoming, but I don't understand how that's going to work and how he'll be able to have some fun with seasons 2 and 3. Keep up the great work. It's good to have a different flavor on board the podcast realm, and thank you sincerely for not reading dialogue and vomiting up episode recaps. Snore. And that, again, was from Lisa in Toronto. And your feedback mirrors a lot of other people's feedback in that I know that, and we were going to talk about it inside the news segment, I know I'm done with reading episode recaps, aren't you? Yeah. Didn't we just finish the episode?
Yeah, recaps are, I wouldn't say that they're sort of the bane of the news, the news of for, yeah. So I wouldn't say they're quite the bane of what's going on, but they are definitely, they're definitely very dry, and I understand that there is so much content available and can be produced, not just online, but television, podcasts, blogs. Sometimes people just, well, I'll just sit down and quickly pop out a recap of what I just watched, as opposed to giving you either opinion or even saying how it related to something that happened previously. Mm-hmm. They just merely mention the fact that this is what happened, bullet point 1, 2, 3, and 4. Join me next week where I tell you everything you just learned. I'm sort of done with that as well.
I am as well, unless you put a really good super spin on it or somehow weave in some opinion. I don't know how that works. It's something that Two Guys Talking had a lot of super success with was the 24 and 60. The 24 and 60 were 3 minutes or less segments-ish on each and every episode of 24. And what those provided us was a good, fun, squeezed together segment for each and every episode of 24, so that instead of watching the 44, 45-minute episode, in 3 minutes you can get a fun, farcical look, a recap inside of that episode. The difference is that it was fun, and it's in 3 minutes. So it's not something like a bland episode recap where you literally go bullet point by bullet point over what you just saw on television. Go and check that out. Go into the Google window anywhere and type in 24 in 60, and you'll find that entire archive. Or you can go to 24podcast.com to listen to all of those. Leah, that's a great letter. And as far as me having fun, that's why I do podcasts, is because it definitely keeps the fun factor up, but it also helps me learn more about me, about what I'm doing with all of my experience as a professional podcaster, but also how I interact with my audience. Thanks again for your mail. That's awesome. David, let's jump to some news.
Sure thing.
We just got done talking about recaps, and again, 3/4 of the news that we find inside of the stream of news inside of the internet is recap stuff. So we're going to skip most of that. But we're actually wondering what you think about recaps. Are they kind of a waste? Have you found one that's more detailed and has more aspects that we need to be looking at? Let us know by accessing the website at fangbangerpodcast.com. click on the contact button and fill out that quick web form with the address in there. And let us know what you think about that recap and why it's different and why we should be revisiting it.
One of the big things is they started announcing some casting for season 5. By the way, they've also picked up the show for season 5. And a huge, huge one for me is the return of Russell Eddington. Magnificent character from season 3. Mike has yet to be introduced to said
Apparently
character.
a big get that I am super excited to learn more about.
Anybody who's watched the show will remember when Russell provided for us probably one of the greatest endings of a television show ever. I won't spoil it for Mike, but everybody knows what I'm talking about, and hopefully within a week or two I'll be able to discuss it with this guy.
Yeah,
magnificent, awesome. Magnificent character, a magnificent work. Just a really, really big, I'm looking forward to that.
It's a huge get, and when you are able to bring back characters that so many fans revere and support, it adds a completely different dynamic to a program, and it's why I really have jumped in with True Blood, because they're totally willing to do things like that, even if someone was supposed to die.
Right.
It actually brings us, it's a perfect segue into our next mail here. Let's see. Reminad from Twitter writes, what's the over-under on there being a major death in season 4? I'm completely unfamiliar with the books. Pound True Blood, pound Fangbanger.
Yeah.
Thoughts on death in season 4?
Well, immediately going back to the fact that the television show has immediately stepped away from the books. Anybody that's familiar with either or both knows that at the end of the first book, True Blood, which the first season was based on, the character of Lafayette dies. Obviously, the massive amounts of fan love for the character kept him alive, and they knew a good thing when they had it. So to say that somebody will or won't die, totally up in the air when it comes to this. Queen Sophie Anne got popped this past episode, literally popped this past episode.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot say for certain that I think that they are above taking a major cast member and just poof, gone. Sophie Anne was a bit of an ancillary character. Some of the antagonists from the other series have died off. Season 2 had some of that. I'm not entirely certain that they're something that they're going to work with. That, oh, we got to kill somebody. The show doesn't have to do that. They don't need to shock you with the death of a character just for shock's sake.
Right.
So, judging from the books, you can't judge from the books what they're going to do with the characters in the show, which is a good thing as far as I'm concerned. Revel in the source material, but don't, just vomit it back out onto the screen. So I can't answer that question one way or the other. They don't need to do it. They haven't done it in the past. So it's sort of a wait and see, which is one of the great things about the show, I think.
Yeah. The other thing to remember, too, is that the cast is so vast, and that they introduce so many new characters. I'm certain there's going to be somebody that dies inside this season that's reasonably large, but are they going to kill one of the main entree characters? Probably not.
Yeah, I would guess no.
Just having another season greenlit, I can't imagine them doing that because they're cutting their nose off to spite their face. So I don't think so. I don't think so. Great question. Thanks again for writing in. We love our Twitter followers. David is on Twitter, at 2GTDavid. I'm on Twitter at 2guystalking, the number 2guystalking. We'd love you to add us on, and we love to chat via Twitter, so please add us on. Next one is from Colette in Door County, Wisconsin. From the contact form, she says, am I wasting time getting into the most recent Transformers movie? When are you guys going to get to the Transformers review for the most recent movie? Also, I looked inside the archives for the previous Transformers review, and I didn't see them. Where can I find them? Thanks for the cool movie reviews and get people, cool movie reviews that get people just what they want, the straight poop and fun. Colette in Door County. Well, it's great that you asked that, and this last weekend we showcased all 3 of our current Transformers reviews. You've got the first one that was the 25th anniversary DVD review. That's our original one from way back with Brian Simatros. The second one was the original live-action Transformers film from Michael Bay in 2007. The second one is The Revenge of the Fallen. That was the 2009 film. We've got those 3 done and showcased over at twoguystalking.com/Transformers, where you can find them all and listen to them. They're great podcasts. And then remember the fourth one, the review of Transformers Dark of the Moon, is going to be coming up, but we always wait that 30 days to get in that perspective. And again, looking at the box office just from this last 3 days, it's another corn combine of cash for Michael Bay.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be an extraordinary perspective review, mostly because I'm going to go see it another time because I liked what I saw, but it's not the period on the end of the Michael Bay sentence that I was looking for. I'm also going to go see it in 3D, I think. I think I'm going to hit an IMAX for that one.
Excellent.
I think it deserves it.
I think I'll see it in 3D as well.
Yeah. Remember that we're always looking for what you thought of that movie, too. So if you've seen it, you can send us feedback by, again, going to twoguystalking.com, click on the contact button, follow blah, 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 and let us know what you think. Last piece of input that we've got is from Rita the Steak-Hearted from South Roxana. I believe that's right near us someplace, isn't it?
I have no
Roxana?
idea.
I think that's Illinois-ish.
Oh, Roxana, Illinois. Yeah.
Roxana, Illinois. Okay. She asks, David, as I understand it, you're more schooled in the books than Mike, the mostly true blood virgin, is.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Rita the Steak-Hearted continues. What are the, without spoiling, most remarkable differences between the books and the showcase detail inside the program so far up to season 4? Thanks for the podcast, and did you see that season 5 was greenlit? Let's work backwards. Yes, we saw that season 5 was greenlit. We mentioned that inside the news segment. That Russell is coming back, and I can't wait to meet him and then meet him again next season.
Excellent.
You're welcome for the podcast. We love making the podcast, both the regular Fang Banger podcast, but then the special True Blood Transfusion. I'm really enjoying this. This is our first foray into video via Two Guys Talking officially. Difference in the books, I have no idea. So,
first of all, without spoiling too much, if you've seen True Blood season 1 and 2, you'll know that Lafayette, the character, lives. This is a huge departure from the books because the character vanishes at the end of the book 1 because he dies. There are some other things. They take the series doesn't actually follow necessarily the stories in the books. What they do is they take their jumping off points from the books. Season 2 had a lot of things from Living Dead in Dallas in it. Story points, there are some character differences. There are characters that are in the book that aren't in the TV show and vice versa, Lafayette being the big one. And without spoiling anything, I think it's safe to say that if you're watching season 4 and you're seeing these things develop, Sookie and her lineage, what's happening with Jason right now, these are story points that come from further down the line in the books. Like I said, I read the first 2 books, and my wife has read them all, and as she reads, she's notorious for going, "Oh my God, you'll never believe what I just read." So I'm fairly familiar with what happens and when, and both of these storylines, Sookie and her heritage and what is happening with Jason in season 4, happen further along in the book series than in book 4. So there's some differences, and like I said, this is one of the great things that I like about the TV show, is that we can have the source material revered and bits of it brought into the show, but yet the show is its own entity. And I think that's one of the great things about it, is that you can read the books and appreciate them for what they are, and watch the show and not necessarily feel as though anything's been spoiled or ruined for you, because there are surprises to be had.
I love that, because as a huge fan of comic book movies, you know that most comic book movies, they'll draw lots and lots of stuff from the original material,
Right.
but they won't mirror them one-to-one. I'm trying to think of a one-to-one mirror inside of anything comic book movie.
They tried really hard with Watchmen.
Yeah.
But for the most part, no, I agree with you.
Yeah, and I think I like that. It allows the creativity asterisk for the filmmaker, and in this case, the television series maker. I'm a total fan of that, because they're drawing on source material. They're staying true, obviously, to characters and thought that's conveyed, but they are clearly taking departure, Lafayette's death being the first and foremost push on that. So again, giant kudos to the writing staffs. We've got one final piece here. We've got the link of the week. Last week was true-blood.net, of course. A huge, giant cacophony of links. This week we've got another fellow podcast link. It's the God Hates Fangs podcast. And obviously, the name gets you instantly, but what got me even more was the logo for the podcast.
Yeah.
It's a giant pearl-handled gun with Jesus on it.
Interesting.
And so that instantly got me. And the other thing that got me, and I put it in here, is their little bio inside of their webpage. It says, "Good evening, Fangbangers. God Hates Fangs is a podcast about HBO's hit supernatural drama True Blood and the Southern vampire mystery novels on which it's based. The show features an episode recap." Although I have not listened to their entire recap, so maybe they've got a twist on it. Comparisons to the books, discussion of the show's awesome soundtrack, WTF of the week, news, spoilers for the week, and punk rock jingles. Warning: contains frequent profanity and big-ass spoilers. So essentially what this podcast is what we are not.
Right.
So that's the third big thing that got me.
No, Mike and I listened to one of their episodes, and I got to tell you that once I got my brain around the fact that I was listening to people from England and that they were speaking proper English, they're quite irreverent. They're really humorous.
Super fun.
One of my favorite.
Well, I guess we're super fun too.
I would hope we're super
the
fun
reciprocal
anyway.
of us is not actually accurate. Some of the bullet points that I also noted were you've got great hosts. You have incredibly animated people, which is vital for success of a podcast. I have produced many podcasts in my podcasting career, and they have an outstanding podcast with very reverent hosts that really do keep you on the edge of your, in this case, True Blood seat. Their accents, David had mentioned the accent of them, and we are linked to them now, actually, via the Fangbanger podcast website. And please go and listen to them. Their accents are beyond entertaining. It's a great piece of fun. Talking about your grandfather was just awesome.
Or my favorite was chocolate-covered crack. I love that. Oh, I want to put that as my ringtone.
Spectacular. What I definitely want to work a deal with is some sort of audio input ad inside of our podcast series. And really, that goes with all the links and people that we're ever going to talk about inside here. We're always happy to help produce and collect input and audio from you guys so that we can feature it inside of our podcast. Outstanding focus on music.
Yes.
Again, they run through the music that's inside the episode to tell you who it is and what the song title is.
A much laser-defined focus on that, something that we haven't gotten into.
Pinpoint. And I don't think it's something that we will, especially because they're doing it. But again, it's a perfect piece of reference material for you to go and reference inside of your True Blood fandom, which is what this is all about. Solid download size. I don't know if you guys really do pay attention to your download sizes anymore, especially those of you producing podcasts. But remember, it doesn't have to be mega file. It doesn't need to take half a day. Yeah, it doesn't need to take half a day to download to get something entertaining. So again, super giant props. The most recent podcast was about the same size as ours. So again, really great work. And then lastly, I'm super looking forward to networking with them. They obviously have their feet underneath them. They're running as a podcast, which again is so rare. Usually what will happen, and it has happened inside of True Blood circles already, is that you'll have a podcast that's established. They'll establish a series of episodes while it's all new and shiny and exciting. And then as it starts to become work, they all disappear.
Right.
And so it's great to see someone that has not only podcasts about True Blood, but also that history of vampires and monster movies episodes.
Yeah, they mentioned that.
Extraordinary, because it shows your zeal in podcasting, which means I'm right in the bag with you guys. There's no doubt about that.
The fact that they produce something in the off season, if you will, is really, it shows that they've got something going on.
Right, and it shows spirit beyond just the True Blood, which again is why I got into the Fangbanger podcast, because I'm absolutely hooked on season 1 and through season 2. I'm good. I'm a good solid fan. I am not loving the program, but I'm loving reviewing it because of the fan base and the networking samples that it's going to give us, like the God Hates Fangs podcast, which you can link to via the fangbangerpodcast.com website. And so, until next time, thanks for watching the second episode of the Two Guys Talking True Blood Transfusion, a partner podcast of the Fangbanger podcast, which you guys can find at fangbangerpodcast.com. Until next time,
I'm David Caree,
host of the Fangbanger podcast. I'm Mike Wilkerson, the other host of the Fangbanger podcast. Thanks for watching the True Blood Transfusion. We'll see you next time.